Five Nights at Freddy's, a game that has carved a mark on the gaming industry for demonstrating to the world that a small horror project from a developer once known for Christian games can evolve into a cultural phenomenon that sees its next release beside the likes of God of War and Final Fantasy. Many associate the game's spike in popularity with its lore, and while I agree with that, it's not the only factor. I'm not here to spoil my guts on the lore though. God knows how much of a rabbit hole that is. No, this video is not suited for that purpose. Instead, I will be taking a step back and dive into the core of what makes up the terrifying experience of Five Nights at Freddy's.
The animatronics around here, they look pretty normal at first sight, right? Well, they're designed to be entertainers after all, but a little thing with them goes on during the night. If you hear anything weird in the pizzeria, or the animatronics not being where they're supposed to be on your camera, well, that's pretty normal. Now, I understand you might have a lot of questions about this, but the animatronics, they go into a free roam mode at night, and if they see you, they may or may not want to stuff you inside of a suit. Now, it's nothing to be worried about. Just make sure your camera, just make sure to check your camera every now and again. And only shut the security doors, the doors, if necessary. Okay, you gotta save the power, or you'll have to reboot the generator manually. Stay sharp, stay alive, and I'll call you tomorrow.
The moment the call finishes, your only form of respite is gone for the night. You're alone with the sentient and bloodthirsty animatronics. It's 1 AM, 5 hours left to go, and in any one of them during the course of your shifts, your life could be ended if you don't play your cards right. The building blocks of fear in FNAF are the game's atmosphere. This in itself can be divided into 3 parts: sight, sound, and context. The third element might seem out of place, but I'll get onto that in a short while. Firstly, let's talk about sight. As the night commences, you are confined to your seat, figuratively speaking. You can't go anywhere. What you see in front of you is your office desk, just barely lit up by the lights on your ceiling. A slew of posters associated with Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria are plastered on the wall, all of which emit a rather positive vibe. The situation that you are in, however, is entirely the opposite. The corridors leading to the halls where the animatronics are one step away from trying to kill you are submerged in darkness, completely dark. You can brighten the hallways using the lights, but you need to use it sparingly. And when the animatronics are at either entrance to your office, you hit the lights, only to witness a menacing glares. You're in an uncomfortable environment. A small office with dim lights and 2 open entrances that leave you vulnerable to their attacks. This establishes tension. The impending thought of having to defend yourself against the animatronics by shutting the doors makes the general player panic, feeling a sense of urgency. You're given the knowledge that you'll be safe with the door shut, so when the animatronics get closer to you, a player may instinctively activate the doors prematurely, even if they aren't at the entrance. It provides an essence of relief, for now. You also have to consider that you have limited power. Unless you're towards the very end of 5 AM, you've sealed your fate in failing to conserve power. Now everything is consumed by darkness, and Freddy lurks at your doorstep, waiting to kill you. Back to the doors. Using them only offers a very short amount of breathing space, because you can't use them forever, lest you run the risk of a power outage. So in other words, you will never feel truly safe during your 5 nights. That's the extent of what you see in your office, without the cameras, that is. But if you flip up your camera, you're greeted to an expansive world of eerie sights. The camera focuses on the show stage by default, where Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie are situated at the beginning of the night. As the phone guy mentioned,
the animatronics, they go into a free roam mode at night,
so they won't stay there. As soon as one of them leaves the stage, the fight for survival begins. Bonnie and Chica are often seen in the dining area, either advancing with a seemingly innocent facade, or obscuring the camera as if they are aware that you are watching them, and sometimes, just sometimes, they are watching you. You are occasionally greeted by their unnerving stares, their blank, dark eyes, with tiny white pupils symbolizing how there is life in this otherwise lifeless animatronics, are shot right at the camera. A good example of this ominous occurrence would be Bonnie in the backstage. Location-wise, it would be pointless for him to go to a place that isn't connected to any other room or shortcut when they're on the hunt. He might as well proceed straight down the dining area and towards the office, than take an unnecessary detour. But that's not the message he's trying to make. When you see this, you'll know exactly why he's face to face with you. That very backstage is the one that will be stuffed within a suit if you lose the game. This is where you die, and Bonnie makes it apparent to you that when he finds you, he'll bring you back here. The sinister images make checking the cameras to keep track of the animatronics very undesirable. Another animatronic that executes the creation of fear well is arguably the black sheep of the main Freddy Fazbear's Pizza cast, Golden Freddy. Granted, he only appears under certain circumstances and can easily be avoided with good reaction timing, but the situation that revolves around him when he appears is anything but good. In Camera 2B, the poster on the wall will sporadically show the haunting face of Golden Freddy. Pulling the camera down will reveal his barren, limp corpse, eyeing you down with a gaping jaw, while the signature catchphrase, "It's me," glitches all over the screen. Failing to pull up the camera when he is summoned into your office will result in a static jumpscare, with Golden Freddy's empty eyes scraping at your soul as the game ultimately crashes. What enhances this fear factor is Golden Freddy's supernatural ability to appear, regardless of if the doors are closed, and that he can spawn in the very first night of the game where you feel the safest and most secure. Animatronics gazing at you in their hunt on the cameras aren't the only visual stimuli for fear. Various background elements in the pizzeria change around randomly, strengthening the haunted atmosphere of the building. The poster in the west hall corner normally shows an innocent-looking Freddy, but on occasion, you'll see him tearing apart his face, as if something from within is trying to escape. On the east hall, the posters on the wall can appear as one of 3 things: the usual posters of the crew, crudely drawn pictures of crying children, or graffiti scribbled on the walls that reads, "It's me." This cryptic and recurring message also appears on the sign in Pirate's Cove, which usually says, "Sorry, out of order," but changes to "It's me" when Foxy leaves his post to hunt you down. Backstage, the endoskeleton and the heads of spare animatronic suits will all stare directly at you sometimes, moving by themselves for some paranormal reason, which really goes to show that the restaurant despises your presence. They don't welcome you here. Nothing in this restaurant does, despite how innocent they might appear to the naked eye. Everything that you see in Five Nights at Freddy's places you in a tense situation, building up the atmosphere of the game in its ultimate goal to immerse the player into a world of fear and terror. Most horror games lack a soundtrack, which is typically an aspect of the game that makes one excited to play it, as it elevates the experience. Part of what makes the experience in a horror game such as Five Nights at Freddy's so terrifying is the absence of said soundtrack. In its place, a collection of ambient sounds and unsettling noises compose the atmosphere for the game. Ever since its debut in 2014, the gameplay of the series relied immensely on sound cues as a core mechanic to indicate the movements of the animatronics. The first game set a precedent by having different ambiences play depending on what happens during the night. Each of them is alarming in their own right, making even the time you spend looking at the harmless interior of your office worrisome. This plays when the animatronics are not active yet, and can be heard the most in Night 1 if you decide to mute the phone call. The anxiety of anticipating when your potential killers turn on the free roam mode increases the tension just by listening to it. This is more effective than silence, as the low strings really sets up your expectations for what is to come. Picture an abandoned building. The sights and the context behind its decaying nature is creepy, sure, but the silence makes it obvious that there isn't actually anyone or anything trying to come your way. Being the master of death in a facility with an abundance of shattered glass and other debris strewn across the floor is nigh impossible. When you convince yourself that you are alone, that resting fear in your heart, that lingering paranoia subsides due to how you're dismissing the existence of a third party in your presence through common sense. Now picture a haunted building. Something that is haunted typically means something evil is active in the area. You are not alone in this case. There is someone or something with you. They would make it clear with sound cues. The thought alone is scary because you are in the presence of an entity or entities that are coming for you. In a similar fashion, Five Nights at Freddy's makes it clear with sound cues that you are being haunted. This sound cue in particular plays when the animatronics are active and the fight for survival has officially started. Upon closer inspection, you can hear a continuous whirring sound, like something is being booted up. It immediately fills you with a sense of dread, knowing that your brief period of respite is over, and you're thrust into a stay-alive situation. Then nowhere near your office once this plays, but that doesn't mean you're safe. The player, out of instinct, would use the camera to check their movements, only to be led by the unsettling sights of the animatronics staring at you. It isn't the most frightening sound in the game, but it certainly is the start to a build-up of tension, and it spikes the very instant you hear this. They're getting closer. You edge more towards death as they begin to infiltrate your office. At this point, your power is starting to dwindle, and you need to conserve it to get through the night. You need to act fast. They are relentless. Upon checking the cameras, it is without doubt that they are in the vicinity, but you don't know exactly when they will strike and attempt to kill you. That is the tension. Fear shooting through your legs, constantly flicking the lights on and off, hoping to save yourself from a terrible fate. This is your cue to ready the doors. Fear stems from a threat stimulus, and this sound effect indicating that the animatronics are closing in is the threat. The thought of them approaching, practically seconds away from entering, triggers your fight or flight reaction, a fear reaction if you will. The fear response is directly connected to a region of our brain known as the amygdala. A good example of when the amygdala activates is seeing emotion on someone's face, maybe crying for instance. Your body's reaction to this sight would be something along the lines of anger or fear. In the case of Five Nights at Freddy's, this sound provokes a fear response in the amygdala, triggering the release of stress hormones, your blood rushing, your sense of alertness heightening. Though the animatronics you encounter aren't real, per se, what you perceive as a threat has now materialized right at your doorstep. Tension gradually develops with these sound effects playing consecutively. It all culminates with the sight and sound of this. The fear building up ever since the animatronics became active has led to this moment. Your fear reaction closes the doors immediately. As they consume your power, you sit with an air of dread filling the room, hoping that you have enough power to make it to 6 AM. They leave, and the hunt resets. It really doesn't help when a variety of other disturbing sounds play as you monitor the crew roaming around the restaurant. In the nights where Freddy is active, a sinister laugh can be heard when he moves from one room to another. You can only delay the inevitable by looking back into the white glint in his lifeless eyes. Footsteps are also audible, signifying when the animatronics are moving closer to your office. It's probably the most useful sound cue, as it often indicates that they're right outside the entrance. Your fear response kicks in, and you close the doors, praying they don't get inside. But if they do, and you're blissfully unaware of their presence as you check the cameras, you hear creepy, raspy moaning, almost like air is leaving a dead body. It's a dreadful sound. Of course, in the game it signals your impending death. Once you hear it, it's over. The sound itself connotes pain, suffering, torture, the kind they'll put you through. It's even more disturbing considering the lore, but we'll get onto that later. Hearing this, the only thing you can do now is wait, before... Wait, was that a girl? The lore of the Five Nights at Freddy's series is expansive, boundless. It's not something I want to make the main point of focus, or else this video will be longer than it needs to be. The only way we can appreciate the intricate narrative of this franchise is to go all the way back to the beginning. This game's atmosphere is rooted not only in its sight and sounds, but its story as well. Allow me to elaborate. There are several newspaper clippings that appear at random in the East Hall corner, providing some basic insight on the lore of the game. In the seemingly innocent Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, serial killer William Afton lured 5 children into the restaurant's back room, wearing an animatronic suit, and murdered them. The 4 mascots of the pizzeria were reported to exert a foul odor, with blood and mucus present around their faces. This is as far as an official explanation goes for these events. The rest are purely speculative. It is theorized that the foul odor emitted from the animatronics is associated with the murder of the children. In particular, the children were stuffed into the suits of the mascots after being killed, and their decomposing bodies produced this repulsive smell. The murder incident is a catalyst for the downfall of the restaurant's company, Fazbear Entertainment. For decades, the products of an unstable company was misused for vile schemes. The legacy of William Afton's actions continues even beyond his death. Think about it. The ones hunting you down throughout the night are the souls of the dead children. They're coming with a vengeance. William was once in a similar position, job-wise, to where you are now. You, as a fully uniformed night guard, give off the impression that you are the killer. The animatronics in their free roam mode perceive you as a threat and seek to kill you as revenge for their own deaths. The idea here isn't simply that they are faulty or malfunctioning. Rather, they have a motive to pursue you. They want to correct what happened on June the 26th. As such, with this logic in mind, you are not at fault. Yet you are still being hounded by the animatronics. Their malicious intent contrasts your innocence. Fear in this case stems from the feeling of being killed for reasons that do not concern you. You've done absolutely nothing wrong, and you can convince yourself all you want that you were not responsible for the deaths of the children. That, however, will not stop the rampage. They will not stop until this depraved killer is finally given the justice he deserves. You just so happen to be on the receiving end of it. The main objective of the game is already in the title: to survive Five Nights at Freddy's. That's your goal. But exactly how rewarding is that goal? Risking your life every hour for a paycheck at the end of the week? Naturally, you should be compensated well for putting your life on the line, right? No. Mike Schmidt, the character you play as, only works for $4 per hour during his short-lived employment. By the definition of minimum wage in any American state, his pay is lower than average. In any one of those hours, you stare in the eyes of death. Despite that, you only get paid $4 for what was potentially the last hour of your life. $4 for effectively avoiding bloodthirsty animatronics, a task that involves unprecedented strategy, reflexes, and multitasking skills. If that isn't scary, I don't know what is. Your presence at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is redundant. You've signed yourself up for a suicide mission which you cannot back away from. You have to endure 5 grueling nights for the price equivalent of a decent office desk. In Mike's shoes, you would be heavily demotivated to persist through the nights. There's nothing good to look forward to but a piece of paper with a measly salary. There is no real incentive to complete the game, besides the satisfaction of completing it. It truly is dreadful, especially with all the odds stacked against you. What's even worse is that you are fired from employment at the restaurant if you choose to tackle custom night. All of that work to survive is now in vain. The company now believes that you are a worker unworthy of serving under this popular brand. All that fear you experience, every single bit of it, you have to walk home with the notion that your bravery will never be acknowledged by anyone in the game. With its spike in popularity over the past few years, the success of the franchise has divided people on whether the games truly deserve its reputation. Some may attribute its flaws to the fanbase. But if you look past all of that and see Five Nights at Freddy's from a horror game standpoint, it excels in creating fear. It excels in producing an unnerving atmosphere, to the point where some players may be reluctant to continue the game due to their fear reaction. Its core gameplay formula, while simple, is effective. You don't need to roam in a 3D environment expecting fear. You just need a small, empty room, a cast of vengeful corpses, a variety of disturbing sounds, and a horrifying backstory. The tension builds up even more in a claustrophobic environment because you are incapable of escaping. The appeal of the franchise may be the lore, yes. That is exactly why the gameplay is excellent. The murderous narrative complements the situation you are in during the night. If you think Five Nights at Freddy's relies on cheap jump scares to be scary, think again. The build-up to the fear is, in my opinion, the most frightening, not necessarily the fear itself. With each new game offering different gameplay mechanics, characters, and segments of lore, sometimes it is nice to appreciate what spawned them all. The quote-unquote best horror game is subjective. Regardless, you can't deny the lasting impression that Scott Cawthon has made on you. And what do you know? It is only the beginning.